Namaskar. Welcome to episode 14 of the Dharma Series. This channel is dedicated to presenting Indian history in its most well researched and academically honest form. Our videos may not always be visually grand, but the effort behind them is sincere, meticulous, and rooted in careful study of original sources. Today we explore how ancient Dharmashastras, Gṛhyasūtras, and historical texts shaped the rules governing marriage in traditional Indian society. My aim is to bring this knowledge to you with humility, respect, and scholarly clarity. So let's begin with our today's topic, rules of marriage in ancient India. Marriage systems, customs, and laws in ancient India. This presentation explores the complete institution of marriage in ancient India, based entirely on Dharmashastras, Smritis, Gṛhyasūtras, Vedic texts, and historical evidence, covering forms of marriage, rites, caste rules, polygamy, polyandry, divorce, widow remarriage, and niyoga. We study the Brahma, Prajapatya, Arsha, Deva, Gandharva, Ashura, Rakshasa, and Pishacha forms, their scriptural basis, social approval, and Varna wise acceptability according to Manu, Kautilya, Mahabharata, and Gṛhyasūtras. Key rituals like Pani Grahana, Homa, and Saptapadi are examined, along with rules ensuring indissolubility, marital duties, penalties, and rights laid down by Manu, Yajnavalkya, and Narad. This presentation analyzes restrictions on gotra, sapinda, pravara, age rules, approved unions, anuloma, pratiloma, and regional customs. We cover polygamy, polyandry, desertion rules, remarriage laws, widowhood restrictions, and rare but important historical examples. Topics include the rights of wives, maintenance laws, remarriage permissions, dhaukana patra, sovereignty classifications, and changing norms across centuries. The presentation concludes with Niyog, its Vedic references, strict rules, social purpose, decline, and its place in preserving lineage in ancient Hindu law. 8 forms of marriage in ancient India. Kautilya lists 8 marriage forms: Brahma, Prajapatya, Arsha, Daiva, Gandharva, Ashura, Rakshasa, and Pishacha, closely matching the Gṛhyasūtras, Dharmashastras, Smritis, and the Mahabharata. Defined as a gift of the daughter after adorning her with ornaments, Brahma marriage is considered the highest form. Prajapatya marriage is performed through the joint completion of religious duties. Shaha Dharmacharya. Arsha marriage occurs when the father gives away his daughter in exchange for a cow and a bull. Daiva marriage happens when the girl is gifted to the officiating priest within a sacrificial altar. Gandharva marriage is a secret association of lovers based on mutual consent and affection. Ashura, Rakshasa, and Pishacha are the lowest forms of marriage. Ashura involves marriage by dowry payment, Rakshasa by forcible seizure, Pishacha by seizing a sleeping or intoxicated maiden. Approval, Varna rules, and Smriti evidence. Kautilya states first 4 forms lawful with father's sanctions, remaining 4 with sanction of father and mother because dowry is received. Manu allows first 6 forms for Brahmanas, last 4 for Kshatriyas, Gandharva, Ashura and Pishacha for Vaishyas and Shudras, Rakshasa and Pishacha prohibited for all. Manu later states first four are for the Brahmanas, Rakshasa for Kshatriyas, and Ashura for Vaishyas and Shudras. Mahabharata supports this. Samvabhuva Manu allows first four and six for the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Rakshasa is meant for kings. First three forms are lawful. Last two, Ashura and Pishacha, are unlawful, and Mahabharata also supports that Brahma, Kshatriya, Gandharva are approved. Vatsayana in Kama Sutra notes Gandharva marriage requires fire rites, permits Pishach and Rakshasa only with nuptial ties. Swayamvar historical examples and legal duties. The Sajjan plates of Amogha record that his ancestor Indra once seized in battle the daughter of the Chalukya king through the Rakshasa form. Language suggests abduction during a Swayamvar hall. Bilhana's Bhikramanka Deva Charita describes the Swayamvar of Chandralekha. His work, Karna Sundari, narrates a princess leaving Gujarat after falling in love with a foreign prince. Another Swayamvar appears in Divyasraya Mahakavya, describing ritual selection of the groom. Some Swayamvar descriptions are exaggerated, though based on actual practices. Texts like Vasistha, Vaudhayana, Gautama, Manu, Yajnavalkya, and Mahabharata state maidens may choose husbands if guardians fail. Swayamvar granted marriage rights to girls lacking guardian support, ensuring proper sanskar even when abducted or deserted. Marriage rules in Dharmashastras. Marriage between persons of the same gotra and pravara was forbidden. Sapinda relations also could not marry. According to Vajnanaveshwara and Yajnavalkya, Sapinda relation arose when two persons shared the pind body particles of a common ancestor, extending to the seventh generation on the father's side and fifth generation on mother's side for both bride and groom. South India recognized marriages with maternal uncle's daughter, paternal aunt's daughter, or sister's daughter. In Rajasthan and parts of North India, marrying the maternal uncle's daughter was unknown. The girl had to be younger. Girls were married just before or immediately after puberty. No fixed male age existed, but he must complete brahmacharya, which was approximately 24 years of age. A woman should marry at 12, a man at 16, as has been stated by Kautilya. Failure to perform marital duties incurred a fine, 12 panas for the woman, double for the man. Manu forbids marrying into families producing daughters only or those with diseases, piles, indigestion, epilepsy, white leprosy, or leprosy. A bride with brown hair, extra limb, meaning six fingers, chronic illness or no hair or excess hair, harsh speech, or brown eyes was to be avoided. Validity, exceptions, and commentary on marriage rules. Kulluka states physicians believed these diseases were hereditary and all contiguous diseases must be avoided when selecting a bride. Though prohibitions are not based on Vedic texts, they are acceptable because their results or phal are perceptible. Sabara explains, if a rule has seen drashta, directly perceptible reason, its breach does not nullify the principal act. If based on an unseen or adrishta reason, the breach makes the act invalid or ineffective, means nishphala. Some texts allow marrying girls with extra fingers or minor defects, implying these prohibitions were practical, not absolute. Marriage between Shagotra, Sapravara, or Sapinda relations was invalid and prohibited. The Indian legislature passed an act forbidding marriage with sister of an elder brother who is unmarried, though earlier texts only deprecated it, not invalidated it. A younger brother should not marry before his older brother, and an elder sister should not remain unmarried while a younger one marries, though such marriages were considered depreciated, not void. Intercaste marriage rules. The Dharmashastras permitted anuloma marriage, male of higher caste with female of lower caste. Pratiloma marriage, which meant female of higher caste with male of lower caste, was forbidden. Thus, a Brahmana could marry a Shudra woman, but Manu imposed the condition that the Brahman must not kiss her or be contaminated by her breath. Manu cites the famous Shudra wives of two sages. Brahmanas married Shudra women at least up to the 7th century. Bana speaks of his two step-brothers born of this Shudra stepmother. A Shudra wife could not join in religious ceremonies, and her children inherited lesser property shares compared to the children of the higher caste mothers. The practice of anuloma marriage declined after the 10th century AD, but hypergamy or anuloma continued among the Rajputs, Jats of North India, and Maithili Brahmanas of Bihar. Children from pratiloma unions were counted among the Shudras, except a Brahmana mother with a Shudra father produced a Chandal. In the Jana Panchamika, a Vaishya merchant seeking a Raja's daughter is mocked socially. Kings argued that caste differences arose from occupations, and originally all castes were one. Dr. Sharma observes Patiloma marriages occurred occasionally, though society generally disapproved of them. Marriage rites. There were no single universal marriage rites. The Ashvalayana Gṛhyasūtra states that observances differ across countries and villages, and one must follow the local customs. Apastamba Gṛhyasūtra stresses that people should learn procedures from women and others familiar with customs. The Gṛhyasūtras describe rites common across India, divided broadly into preliminary rites, essential rites, and concluding rites. Although common, their deals and sequence vary among texts. Key rites included panigrahana, accepting the bride's hand placed in the bridegroom's palm, homa, offering into the fire, agni pradakshina, and saptapadi, 7 steps taken jointly by bride and groom. After Saptapadi, the marriage became indissoluble. Manu states that husband and wife become one for religious duties. Even in adultery, the wife was not to be abandoned outright. She lost her temporary but had to be maintained at a semi starvation level until performing the required penance. Yajnavalkya orders one-third property and maintenance if poor for a wife abandoned without cause. Narad instructs kings to punish severely anyone who forsakes an obedient wife, whose speech is sweet, who is skillful, chaste, and mother of heroic sons. Manu states a wife must obey her husband implicitly, avoid harsh speech, which is apriyavadini, and even view him as a god. Polygamy, rules and conditions. Monogamy was the ideal and generally followed form of marriage, but polygamy existed even in Rig Vedic age. Rig Veda contains a charm to win a husband's affection, form a co-wife. Other Rig Vedic hymns hint at jealousy between wives. Yajnavalkya himself had two wives. Apastambha declares that if a man has a wife who is endowed with dharma and progeny, he must not marry again, but if she is otherwise, he may marry again. A man may remarry if his first wife is addicted to drink, engaged in vile habits, acts against her husband's interests, is cruel, is a spendthrift, or suffers from leprosy, etc. He may make another wife if the first produces no child for 8 years, only girls for 11 years, has dead children for 10 years, or speaks harshly. These grounds derive from Manu but explained by later acharyas. Even when faults exist, the husband must maintain the first wife after taking a second wife. Harita adds that permission from first wife should be ideally taken before remarrying. A husband violating these rules must compensate the first wife with half of the property and half the dowry and pay a fine of 24 panas. Kautilya limits the numbers of wives to a maximum of 4. A man may not approach a wife whose menstrual cycle has stopped, who is diseased, who deserts him, or who goes abroad with another man. A husband desirous of a pious life with many sons may remarry under Kautilya's law. Polyandry, scriptural views and cases. The Tattariya Samhita and Aitariya Brahmana emphatically declare that while a man may have several wives, a woman cannot have more than one husband. Thus, polyandry is unapproved in Vedic texts. There is no reference to polyandry in the Vedas, yet Draupadi married 5 Pandava brothers. When Yudhishthir proposed the union, Drupad and Drishtadumna objected, saying that one woman with many husbands was unheard of. Yudhishthir replied by citing ancient precedents. Mahabharata mentions Gautami, who had married 7 sages. Mahabharata refers to Jatila, woman who had more than one husband. Mahabharata also cites a woman with Ekapati Vrata, one husband, showing multiple traditions existed. Apastambha states that wives may not be given to outsiders but could be shared between brothers, which is niyoga, for begetting a son. Brihaspati forbids niyoga due to risk of moral decline and impurity. The most comprehensive practice condemned was a brother taking the wife of the deceased brother, delivering a maiden to a family similarly to a mother's position is also criticized. Polyandry existed in some groups of ancient India. Today it is practiced among the scheduled tribes such as the Todas of the Nilgiris and Khasas of Jaunsar Bawar in UP, and people of Lahaul, Kinnaur, and Spiti in Himachal Pradesh. The practice is noted among Pershikas, which means Persians, showing wider Indo-Iranian parallels. Divorce and remarriage. Traditionally, Hindu marriage was indissoluble. As stated earlier, Vedic texts do not mention divorce, but later Dharmashastras discuss conditions under which the marital rights of wife may be removed. Manu declares a woman does not cease to be a wife even if abandoned or sold. However, Manu states a man may marry again if the marriage has not been consummated or if the wife has forsaken her husband because of his young age. Kulluka explains the first example amounts to divorce, while the second example concerns nullification of the marriage. Kautilya gives a list of cases where divorce is permitted. If a wife is disaffected, refuses marital obligations, or seeks divorce because of the husband's offense. In sacramental marriages, divorce was rare, but Kautilya makes exceptions. Sacramental marriages involved Kanya Sambhaya, owner of the daughter. The father transferred his rights to the bridegroom at marriage, making dissolution difficult. Kautilya provides detailed waiting periods for wives whose husbands disappear. 1 year if she has heard the news, 5 periods if no news. Different rules apply depending on whether dowry was fully or partly paid. After waiting for the prescribed time, 3, 5, 7, or 10 periods, depending on news and dowry, the wife may remarry with approval of judges. Widowhood, deserted husband cases, and social customs of remarriage. If a husband leaves for religious duty, the wife must wait 8 years. For knowledge fame, wait 6 years. For love affair or another wife, wait 3 years. Manu is unclear on what the wife must do if the husband never returns, but later acharyas classify. Kulluka, quoting Vasishtha, recommends that after waiting 5 years, a wife should go to her husband. Though impractical, this rule was often applied, especially in cases of desertion. The story of Nala and Damayanti shows a deserted wife could fall for a second Swayamvar, indicating widespread acceptance of remarriage under such conditions. Adhaukana Patra means permission of divorce appears in the Lekha Paddhati, indicating divorce was approved by a court assembly of relatives. This particular divorce involved a mehra, Mer couple. King Durvalaka of Kashmir married a merchant's wife after the merchant allowed it. She became the queen and mother of Lalitaditya Muktapida, showing such unions could gain later legitimacy. Certain irregular unions were tolerated socially. Narad lists 7 kinds of unchaste women, 3 of which, Parapurva, Punarbhu, and Shavirini, could remarry legitimately. Types included widow united with brother in law if no brother existed, widow who rejects her deceased husband's brothers, woman purchased or overcome by hunger, woman given by elders following customs. Though prohibited, later such unions once had legal recognition. Widow remarriage, early evidence, scriptural views, and social reality. Some scholars argue that widows remarried in Vedic age, citing Rig Veda and Ashvalayana Gṛhyasūtra. M. Kane analyzed these passages and concluded that widows might either marry the deceased husband's brother or go through niyoga if the husband died sonless. Kane notes that remarriage of women was prohibited in the period of Atharva Veda. Tattiriya Samhita mentions Dadhisuya, means widow's son, giving indirect hints of remarriage. Views of Narada, Parasara and Agni Purana states that Parasar in Agni Puran say that a new husband is ordained for 5 calamities, the husband being lost, dead, becoming a sannyasi, impotent or patita means fallen. Kautilya sanctions remarriage of a woman whose husband is unheard of. Manu allows remarriage only when marriage had not been consummated. By Medhatithi's time, which is 9th century AD, widow remarriage in the three upper castes was frowned upon or had nearly ceased. Only a few instances survive. The only early example is widow remarriage of Dhruva Devi to Chandragupta II. A 13th century Gujarat example mentions Asharaja arranging remarriage of a child widow for temple builders Bhastupala and Tejapala. Another case in AD 1350 to 1450 describes merchant Jagadu wanting to remarry his widowed daughter. Hemachandra writes that Dharma permits women to marry again in case of 5 calamities, indirectly rejecting the strict stance of Narad and Parasar. Niyog, purpose and rules. Niyog means procreation of a son by a wife or widow through union with an appointed male who is the Niyogin. This practice is likely referenced in Rig Veda Mandala 10 and ancient Smritis treated it as authoritative for producing heirs when husband died sonless. Though Svetaketu prohibited promiscuous relations, the Dharmashastras and Smritis laid down rules for Nyo under specific conditions, making it socially regulated rather than immoral. The texts specify the husband alive or dead must have no son. Elders must permit the widow to raise a son. The neogyn, one who shows the seed, must be the husband's brother or a man of the same gotra, or sapravara or sapinda in special cases. Relationship must terminate after the son's birth. The couple must not behave as regular spouses or it becomes incest. Any breach incurs punishment by the king. Manu describes niyog as an ancient practice but later condemns it, especially in cases where betrothed girl's fiancé dies and she cohabits with another man. Manu details inheritance rights of Kshetraja's sons, sons begotten on the wife of a deceased man, granting them legitimacy and property rights. Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidur were traditionally believed to be born through Niyog. Several Pandava brothers were also linked to Niyog like birth, though no explicit textual reference confirms formal Niyog. Over time, Niyog became restricted and was eventually prohibited among the upper castes, though its memory survived in legal commentaries and Dharmashastra discussions. Sources. The presentation draws extensively from the Dharmashastras, including the legal and social prescriptions found in the works of Manu, Yajnavalkya, Narada, Parasar, Apastambha, Bodhayana, and Vasishtha. Important references come from the Gṛhyasūtras, especially the Ashvalayana Gṛhyasūtra and Apastamba Gṛhyasūtra, which provide essential material on rituals and marriage customs observed across regions. The Vedic texts such as Rig Ved, Atharva Ved, and Taittiriya Samhita have been used for understanding early marital practices, widow remarriage implications, and traces of niyoga. The Mahabharata, including critical sections and episodes of Draupadi, Nala Damayanti, and Dharmaraj, has been used for examples of polyandry, desertion, and remarriage. Insights are taken from Kautilya's Arthashastra, particularly Book 3 and 3.3, which detail marriage law, divorce provisions, desertion rules, niyoga restrictions, property rights, and penalties. Secondary historical analysis is derived from this modern scholarship, such as M. Kane's History of Dharmashastra, A. K. Majumdar, D. Sharma's Rajasthan Through the Ages, and Kalhana's Rajatarangini. The overall structure and factual data follow the narrative from a concise history of ancient India. Thank you for being here. If you found value in this sincere attempt to present our history with honesty and depth, I humbly ask for your support, whatever form that support may take. Your encouragement helps me to continue this journey with dedication and integrity. Dhanyabad.